My life is like a hamster on a wheel. Between 5th and 26th of every month, I receive numerous phone calls and messages from debt collectors, friends and family included, demanding that I pay back what I owe. A few days to payday, I'm usually ecstatic because the money is on its way. I'm full of anticipation for my fat bank account. 2 or 3 days after I get paid, I find myself with zero money. One cause is that I prioritize paying debts to the people who stressed me and threatened me within the month. Then I look for a different mobile money app or person to borrow from because I still have to pay my bills. And the cycle continues. This cycle is accompanied by feelings of failure. Stress has become my daily companion. I don't fully understand how I got here, yet I know I earn a substantial amount. That's my client's story that she shared with me a few days ago. It's been 8 years of her being in the workforce. It's been 8 years of her having a job, but she has no tangible assets to show for all the work that she's been, for all the years that she's been working. All she has to show for the 8 years is debt, stress, and confusion. That literally, this is her relationship with money, living paycheck to paycheck, paying debt at the end of every month, and not feeling any progress in her financial goals or in her financial dreams. Does this sound like you? Do you relate to any part of this story? Do you live with stiff shoulders, clenching your jaws, and headaches month to month when you think about your finances? Have you been living paycheck to paycheck? My name is Agatha from the Wealth Tribe, and this is where we learn how to build wealth together. What does living paycheck to paycheck mean? Living paycheck to paycheck means using all your monthly income to cover your expenses, including debt, therefore leaving no money for savings and investments. So you're in a situation where, yes, you can pay your bills, and yes, you can pay some of your debts, but you have no money left for savings or investments. That is what living paycheck to paycheck mean. And one thing I noticed when I have this conversation about living paycheck to paycheck is that people seem to think that this is a lifestyle reserved for low income earners. From my experience, no. Living paycheck to paycheck is something that also affects high income earners, because at the end of the day, remember, it's all about you just having enough money to pay all your bills, pay a bit of debt, and some people are not even able to pay debt, and therefore and have no savings and investments. And that is a true story for people who both earn little money and for those who make a lot of money. And so it cuts across all income levels. And now, before I tell you the 11 tips on how you can stop how you can stop living paycheck to paycheck, I'm going to tell you about how I broke my cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, because I've been there, deep in the mud. And the thing about living paycheck to paycheck is that unless you've experienced this lifestyle, unless you've been there, it is almost impossible for you to understand how other people who are living paycheck to paycheck feel. It's almost impossible to understand their struggles. And so back in 2016, when I got my first job, so between 2016 and 2018, I was living paycheck to paycheck and I was living in debt. And a few things that characterized my life back then is that I had no financial plan whatsoever. I did not have a budget. In fact, I didn't know how a budget is made, and I was not deliberate about doing better with my money. I was not deliberate about having a financial plan and sticking to it, or following my financial goals. And something else that was a characteristic of my life back then is that I lived with anxiety. The anxiety accompanied me whether I am going to the grocery store to buy something, or I'm going to the doctors. And that is usually such a difficult life, because you feel like you feel like actually like you have a child, or a child called anxiety, or the way the way your shadow follows you on a sunny day. That is how your anxiety follows you when you're living paycheck to paycheck, or when you haven't figured out how to do better with your money. And I do remember something else is that by the end of the month, by the 25th of the month, I used to live on tea, bananas, and bread. That was my meal from like around 25th up to the 5th of the following month. I used to live on those three things as I tried to stretch the last dollar or the last few coins in my pocket. And of course, it wasn't a beautiful life. It was a very chaotic, and just like I asked in the beginning, I used to walk around with very stiff shoulders, a headache, and clenching my jaws anytime I saw somebody calling me that I owed, or even a mobile money loan. And I shared my full story of how I got out of debt, and I will link it. But truth be told, when I was living in that financial situation, I took no responsibility. I wasn't taking any responsibility towards doing better with my finances. And so the first step I did to stop living paycheck to paycheck was I took responsibility over my finances. And one of the things that I did was open an Excel sheet, write all the debts, make a list of all the people that I owed on, or all the mobile money loans that I owed. And I remember naming that Excel sheet my financial responsibilities. That is how I owned my mess. And apart from owning my mess, I also created a deliberate plan on how to pay all my debts. And that was one legit way, or those are the two legit ways that I stopped living from paycheck to paycheck. But for all the other tips, that's what we're going to talk about from now on. So here are 11 tips to help you break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. Tip number 1: break the culture of silence and shame. Guys, I realized that it's very possible for somebody to tell you a story about, or for somebody to share that they have a sexually transmitted infection, that they are likely to tell you about living with debt. Why? As we're growing up, for some reason, talking about money in our society is associated with shame. I see even married couples who will never share how much money they make with each other. These are people who share the same bed. These are people who share families. These are people who have a future together. These are people who are planning, to build a life together, in future, and never get divorced. But they will never disclose to each other how much money they make. But when it comes to living paycheck to paycheck, we are not we are just never ready to have that conversation. We are never ready to admit that we are in debt, we have lost control of our finances, that we are living paycheck to paycheck. By the 25th, we are living on tea and bread, just like I did. We just never talk about it, and it's a very sad situation, because what happens is that if we do not talk about money, we risk getting stuck for a longer time in this cycle of living paycheck to paycheck than we should. You risk staying there for 5 years, for 7 years. Yet, if you just came out and talked to a friend, of course, somebody who can understand, or a financial coach, that, hey, I need help, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I have 1,000,001 debts, and I need you to help me get out of this situation. And another thing that is very dangerous that comes out of us not talking about money is that we blame ourselves. You blame yourself. You look at yourself with all your debts and you think, the reason why I'm stuck in all these debts is because I am terrible with money. I am a bad person. I don't know how to make a budget. Blame. And the thing is, blaming yourself is not a solution. Is not a solution. But of course, I understand where that comes from. And so, creating an environment where we can talk, or we can openly have a conversation about money. We can openly have conversations about money and help each other, means we will make more progress, and will stop you from living paycheck to paycheck for longer than you should. And actually, that is one of the reasons why I started The Wealth Tribe. And the Wealth Tribe is actually a community where young people openly talk about money and help each other build wealth. Because I realized that even one of the reasons why I was stuck in this cycle of debt and living paycheck to paycheck is because I was ashamed. I couldn't tell my family, I could not tell my friends. I couldn't tell anyone that this is my situation. And so I welcome you to join the Wealth Tribe, both by subscribing to this channel, and I'll also put a link in the description box of a telegram group where you can join us and we can help you get better with money. Tip number 2 of how to stop living paycheck to paycheck is get very clear, very clear about where you stand with your finances. So the only way to create a path of getting better with money is understanding where you are now. And so there are two ways you can know where you are now. Number one is by calculating your net worth. And what is your net worth, or how do you calculate your net worth? Is by creating a list of your assets. So your assets might be a piece of land that you know, savings in a bank account, an investment like bonds or money market fund account that you have. Those are your assets, basically valuable items that you own. And then you subtract your liabilities. So your liabilities might be a debt that you have, school fees arrears that you have, rental arrears that you have, bills that are due, that have been due for the last 3 months. And so knowing your assets and then you subtract your liabilities, that is your net worth. Even if you do this exercise and you realize that, oops, I have a negative net worth, and so having a negative net worth is where you do your assets minus liabilities, and the number is negative. Even if you realize that your net worth is negative, it's okay, because now you have a clear understanding of where you are with your finances. And when you know where you are with your finances, then you can start coming up with a financial plan. And so another way of getting clarity of where you are with your money is owning your mess. Remember, I gave an example that one of the ways that I stopped living paycheck to paycheck is that I owned my mess. One of the things that I actually did is I created an Excel sheet where I listed all my debts, all my liabilities, and named that Excel sheet my financial responsibilities, because I needed to own that. I got myself into this situation, and I am the only person who is responsible for getting myself out of this situation. And so I wish the same for you. Number 3, the third tip on how to stop living paycheck to paycheck: stop spending on anything that is not a need. And anytime I tell people this, I almost always add that you also have to be very clear, very clear and honest with yourself on what is a need and what is a want, and to stop fooling yourself that one is the other. Because I've met people who, they will play these mind games with themselves where they want to fool themselves that no, this is actually a need. Going out twice per month is a need, but you're going out on debt. You're going out even to be a burden to your friends or your family. So be very, very clear on what it means, on what a need is to you and what a want is. Of course, some of the basic needs are housing, shelter, food, clothing, and paying, like having access to electricity or water. And so when you have a list of these basic needs, make sure that those are the only things that you're spending money on, so that you allow yourself to have at least a sum of money that you can start building your savings and investments kitty. One thing I noticed is that a lot of us went to school, learned how to get a job, and therefore learned how to make money, but a lot of us do not know how to keep the money. Earning the money and keeping the money are two different ball games in different WhatsApp groups. And so a lot of us don't know how to differentiate these two. And so you need to get very, very clear. You need to get very clear on what are your needs and what are your wants. And you also need to understand that earning money and keeping money are two different ball games. And by understanding this, you will be able to be in a situation where you will understand whether you're living within your means, below your means, or above your means. And most people who are living paycheck to paycheck are mostly usually living above their means. And when you understand that you're living above your means and by how much, then you can start coming up with a plan, or you can come up with a plan that will allow you to get out of this situation. Number 4, the fourth tip: budget and track your expenses. Well, there's always this situation where we get to the 15th of every month and you're like, where did my money go? Because you don't know, because you do not have a budget, you have no plan. And you know what happens is that if you do not tell your money where to go, it will develop its own legs, and many and fast legs at that, and the money will always run away from you. And that is how you find yourself in this cycle of every 15th of the month, of every mid of the month, you're asking yourself, where did my money go? Was I actually paid? You even start looking at your bank account and wondering, did that money actually hit my account? It did. But because you do not track your expenses and because you do not have a budget, then there's no way of you controlling this situation. And the good thing is that here at the Wealth Tribe we have a budget tracker, and this is a customizable budget tracker. And in this budget tracker, you're able to do if you use this budget tracker, you're able to do 3 things. Track your incomes. If, for example, you have more than one income, or you have a 9 to 5 job and you have other side hustles. Number 2, you're able to track your savings and investments. If you have a chama, if you have a merry-go-round, if you have a money market fund set up, you're able to track your savings and investments. Number 3, you're able to track your expenses, all your expenses. And this budget tracker is customizable, remember, so you can move things around and make it work for you. And this also budget tracker is something that helps you have an annual financial plan. And so I will link it in the description box, just in case you want to grab it and you want to start doing better with your money. Of course, if you're living to paycheck, you want to take responsibility, because that is the only way to do better. And by one of the ways to take responsibility is by budgeting and tracking your expenses. Tip number 5: build an emergency fund. Now, if you lost your job tomorrow, how long would you last while maintaining the same lifestyle? If the answer to this question is not 6 months or more, then it's an emergency that you start building your emergency fund today, not tomorrow. Today, you need to start building your emergency fund. And an emergency fund, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, an emergency fund comes in handy because it's a buffer against emergencies. When you're hit with an emergency, whether medical or such, if you have a 6-month emergency fund, then you're able to use that emergency fund to cover these emergencies, so that it doesn't so that you don't get into debt. Because what happens is that when you're living paycheck to paycheck, you actually are in a it hurts your life, it hurts your financial future, in that living paycheck to paycheck becomes more expensive. How? When you're hit with an emergency, what happens is that you have to default to taking an expensive loan. Example, using a credit card, or either by using a credit card or taking a mobile money loan. And these things are usually expensive. Some of them have interest rates or even above 100%. And so what happens is that if you don't have an emergency fund, then you get an emergency, you take an expensive loan. That expensive loan obviously is going to take you longer to pay back. What will happen? You will forever remain in this circle of living paycheck to paycheck. And the longer you stay there, the more you minimize, or the more you reduce your chances of even retiring, of having a wealthy retirement or retiring better. And so start building your emergency fund. And I did a whole guide on how to build an emergency fund that I will link. Tip 6 on how to stop living paycheck to paycheck: make more money. The truth is, there's only so much you can cut back in your expenditure. There's only so much going out that you can stop. There's only so much stop buying new clothes that we can tell you. There's only so much stop hanging with your boys that we can tell you. Because I keep repeating on this channel, life is for the living. Your quality of life matters. You don't want to just get stuck in a situation where you just pay your bills and you pay your rent, and that's it, and then you live in your house forever. That's suffering, actually. And one thing I preach against is suffering. So as I said, there's only so much you can cut back on. And so, of course, I advise that one of the points that I said is, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, one of the hacks is stop spending on stuff that are not needs. But beyond that, for you to create a life of abundance, what you need to do is make more money. So have a self-evaluation where you ask yourself, what are my talents? What are my skills? What unique experiences do I have? How can I start making more money from this set of skills and experiences? Because making more money is obviously going to make your life easier, and it's going to make you stop living paycheck to paycheck faster, and also pay your debts faster. And so if I can give an example, when I had my 9 to 5 job, I looked at myself and I wondered, what are my skill sets? And I was like, I'm very good at writing. And so that is how I started my blog, thewealthtribe.com. I realized that I'm good at writing, and I realized that I'm a good teacher. And so I started making more money by blogging. So I make passive income through my blog, through, for example, ads and affiliate marketing. And affiliate marketing is where you sell other people's products or services. And also, because I'm a good teacher, I started financial coaching. And so this is also an opportunity for me to tell you, if you're struggling, if you're struggling with your finances and you need help, hit me up. I will leave my contact details in the description. So evaluate yourself and ask yourself, how can I make more money? And also remember that even if you do not want to start a side hustle, because side hustles are not for everyone, by the way, one more way of making more money is having a budget, deciding that an X amount, at least 10%, because paying yourself first is mandatory, deciding that at least 10% goes towards your savings and investments. And therefore, when you invest, you start earning interest from your investments start compounding, and that's how you start making more money. So it's not a must that you start a side hustle. You can also go the passive income through your investments way. Tip number 7 of how to stop living paycheck to paycheck: visualize how your life would be if you are not living paycheck to paycheck. Visualize how your life would be if you actually attain your financial goals. If your desires came to being, all those things that when you sit down and fantasize how you would want your life to be, visualize it. Sit down and actually visualize how different your life would be. Because if you actually take time to visualize how differently your life would be, a different quality of life, then that is a proper motivation for you to start doing better with money. For you to start deciding that, every time my paycheck hits my account, I'm going to put 10% aside so that I can start my savings or investments basket. So take time. All those vision boards that we're usually always told that at the beginning of the year or mid in the year you should create your vision board. They're important because they allow you to dream above what you observe on a daily basis, or to dream way above what your current circle has. Tip number 8: automate your savings and investments. The thing is, there's no need for you to get stuck in a process where you have to fight yourself. You have to fight battles within yourself. What do I mean by this? A lot of us, we wait for our money to hit our bank account, for our salaries or for our salaries to hit our bank accounts, and then we start debating with ourselves, how much out of this 80,000 that I have will I put towards my savings and investments? And most of us lose that battle. And we've been losing that battle for many, many months. And that's how we've been stuck living paycheck to paycheck. I want you to stop fighting that battle. A better way to win this war is by automating your finances. What do I mean? Go to your banker. Tell them to set up a standing order. Tell them to set a standing order where if your paycheck hits your bank account on 5th, then 10% is automatically deducted and is put towards your savings and investment accounts. In that way, by the time you have access to your money, it's already less your savings and investment amount. And so in that way, you actually learn how to live on less. And I know it will hurt when you start living on 10,000 less, 20,000 less. It will hurt within the first month and the second month, but within the third month you'll have adjusted. You'll have adjusted and you continue living. Another way to automate your finances is setting reminders. Have calendar reminders where a calendar reminder that asks you, hey, did you save? How much money did you save this month? And to tip number 9 on how to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Curate your inner circle, because the quality of your inner circle matters. Because most of the time, as I've observed and as I've experienced, your family and your close friends are usually your worst enemies when it comes to achieving your financial goals, or when it comes to sticking to your financial plan. So because what happens is that most of our family, close friends and family put a lot of pressure on us. You will be going this direction and they will tell you, no, as we found a piece of land on this other direction, or no, contribute X amount to black tax, or so and so is joining school next month and so you should chip in, and maybe you don't even have the capacity. And that pressure is one of the things that makes us not stick to our financial plans and not escape the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. Tip number 10, audit your finances every month. Because how else will you know if you're making progress in your financial goals if you do not audit yourself month after month? So every month, I need you to create a calendar date, and I need you to go to your calendar and put and set a date in your calendar that repeats every month, where you sit down with yourself with a pen and paper and review how you spent your money last month and set goals on how you're going to do better with your money next month. And this is the process that I call dating your money. Yeah, you need to date your money every single month if you're actually going to make proper progress in terms of your financial goals, in terms of retiring better, having all your desires met. And actually, I did a whole video on the 11 questions that you need to ask yourself when you're seated down and you're going through this process of dating your money. And as always, I will link it. And tip number 11, get help. Get help. Doing better with money. We always say that in most of our homes, we were not taught. We were not taught how. We never had conversations about money. We were not taught how to do better with our money. We were not taught personal finance management tips. And for a lot of us also, we were not taught in school. And so where you are now, the reason you're not fully to blame for living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, apart from that, most of us live in countries where the systems just don't work. We are currently living in a system where the inflation rate is skyrocketing and our paychecks are not matching the inflation rate. And so, of course, this is a way to tell you that at the end of the day, you're not fully to blame. Listen, you're not fully to blame for living paycheck to paycheck. And so, seek help, talk to a friend, talk to a financial coach. I do financial coaching and I will leave a link to how you can book a coaching session. I can help you do better with your money. Don't just get stuck there with shame and guilt and self-blame. Guilt and shaming yourself is just a temporary solution. It never works for the long term. You can do better. And so do let me know which of these 11 tips you've used before or you're currently using to get yourself to break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, because this is something that you deserve. Again, the quality of your life matters, and you can get yourself out of the situation that you're in. Thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button.